Hello, I'm Bret and you're watching The Defining Moment for Creating the Culture of Conscience. Our guests today are Dr. Dietrich Seidel and his wife Elizabeth. The Seidels are instructors of courses and seminars on marriage and family enrichment. Elizabeth is a native of France, and Dr. Seidel is a native from Austria. They've both lived here in the United States for over 30 years. Dr. Seidel is also an adjunct professor of theology at the Unification Theological Seminary in upstate New York. He holds a PhD in theology from the University of Toronto with a focus on marriage and family research. Dietrich and Elizabeth have been married for over 30 years, and they've raised 2 grown children. Dr. Seidel and Mrs. Seidel, welcome to The Defining Moment. It's really a pleasure for me to welcome you here to our studio today.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for coming. Our topic today is intimacy, sex, and spirituality in marriage. And I'd like to begin by asking each of you to share a defining moment from your own lives which has influenced you in becoming who you are today. Dr. Seidel?
Yeah, if I think back to my teenage years, as you can imagine, puberty, you're struggling with your own sexuality, and I had a friend, we spent time in the summer together, and at one point he was kind of a good friend, but then at one point he shared something about his sexual experience with a woman, and I felt that was just not right. It just hit me that actually our sexuality is something sacred, and I always remember that moment that sexuality needs to be lifted to that standard, and it's in a way that became a guiding thought for my future.
That had a real impact on you.
Yeah, had an impact on me. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for sharing that. Elizabeth?
Yes, when I met Dietrich for the first time, I think I had a deep spiritual experience with God. As I look into his eyes, I could see beyond that, and I could feel the love of God. And all my life, I searched for true love. Where am I going to find true love? So when I met my husband, I really feel this is my true love for my life, for eternity.
Thank you.
And also, love is a decision. I decided I'm going to love this guy, and I will make all my effort, all my life, to make it a success. So
Wow.
that was my deep experience, feeling the love of God, and that was very special.
Well, that's very touching. Thank you for sharing, both of you, your defining moments. What have you discovered to be the most common obstacles to love and intimacy in marriage?
In my opinion, it's the way we look at our own sexuality. That in many ways we think the sexuality is something which I can use to my pleasure as I seem fit, and so it's just part of my personality. And the problem is that obviously we are somewhat prone, or there's a tendency in our human nature to abuse our sexuality, that if we kind of just follow a path of self-gratification, in the end we feel empty or we feel not fulfilled, and so then the questions come up, what is really the meaning of my sexuality? And so a few thoughts on that could help to put things in perspective, and also to show why are couples struggling with their sexuality.
Okay.
So the first thing I want to say is that by looking at my own sexuality, I realized that is the area in my life where I recognize or I acknowledge that I am created for a partner, that I'm not just living on my own, but here is the clear indication that we are supposed to live as a couple, in complementarity, that we share this gift of our sexuality and bring it to its fulfillment. And so in a sense, sexuality is a gift, and I bring this gift to my spouse. And so the more I can keep this gift intact and pure and good, the more precious that gift. And it's, of course, on the mutual level. So therefore, the ideal of sexual abstinence and purity in our sexual life before marriage, preparing in that way, then I can give the most precious gift to my spouse. And that is many times overlooked because our whole culture is tuned towards instant gratification or using a sexual drive as we seem fit, and then the suffering comes. Then we see we are somewhat violating a universal law of complementarity and seeing sexuality then as the gift for marriage, right? That there's a place for it. And I heard one time a little metaphor in that sense, which means sexuality, of course, expresses in its most intense way our love for each other as a couple. But then that love is like a fire, right? It's so strong, it can consume all our feelings, our whole personality, our whole aspirations. It's and we have to be very careful that this fire burns in the right place, because in every home there's a fireplace for the fire.
Yes.
If we would kindle fires as at will, we have a problem. Yeah? We become arsonists, right? We burn down the house. And so with our sexual drive, sexual love, it is similar. There has to be a place for sexual love to happen, and that place is a monogamous marriage. That's the ideal. And if that is accomplished, then the good fruits of sexuality can multiply, can be present in our society.
Okay, great. Very well said. Thank you. Elizabeth, would you like to add, what are some of the most common obstacles to intimacy in marriage?
Yes, I guess in today's world, there's so many demands on couples, and many couples feel a lot of stress with finance. So I have a friend, and she said to me, I can't hold my husband's hand right now because I have so much stress financially. So I feel people are working 2 jobs, they have a lot of kids, so they have so many demands, so there's no space for intimacy and love. So that's very sad, and I wish we could find a way to overcome all this.
Yeah, okay, very clear.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I know that for both of you, spirituality is the foundation for your marriage. Please share with our viewers the difference spirituality can make in increasing love and intimacy between husband and wife. Elizabeth, would you like to begin?
Yes, I believe your love has to be protected. And if you are a spiritual person, if you are religious, God will help you and protect you, especially against temptation, because out there's so much temptation. There's pornography, there's free sex. So how to protect your true love is very important. So if you feel, the way to preserve it is always do things together. Don't go on your own with another man to the movie, for example, but do it as a couple or do it together. So I think to preserve your true love and avoid temptation, it's very important. People divorce for anything. And I think if love is a decision, they can fight for their marriage and make it successful and be victorious. I think it's a big job.
Yeah, it is. There's a lot of challenges to a marriage, to keeping a marriage intact.
Yes.
Okay, clear. Dr. Seidel, how does spirituality strengthen a marriage?
God gives us our partner, and He gives also as our gift, as I said before, our sexuality. So that's maybe the first step, to see our sexuality as something totally good and given to us by God. So there's a spirituality about our sexuality.
Okay.
So to acknowledge that original value of our sexuality, that it would lead us into ultimate unity with our partner and ultimate unity with God.
That's a very interesting concept. I think that's a new concept for some of our viewers.
Right.
Can you say more about that?
It has to do with the nature of love, because if we could fathom, at least to some extent, what love really is in its essence, and as a relationship between husband and wife, then we can also understand the place of sexuality and how God would be present in that relationship. So first of all, love is is a relationship between partners, right? So we have God as our origin, as our creator, and then we discover that we are created in polarity, man and woman, so that God must have this kind of aspects in his own being. So there's a harmony between masculine and femininity within God, but that is expressed in that couple relationship. And now if we carry this a step further, then we see in that give and take between God and us, we will fulfill fully, to the highest degree, the image of God, not as individuals, as a man or a woman, but as a couple. And so the fulfillment we have as a couple in loving each other, it becomes God's joy and God's fulfillment. So therefore, spirituality in marriage and spirituality in our sexual life, that there's that aspect maintained, is then confirmed by understanding the nature of love, right? Realizing there's an ultimate resemblance, right, between God and us as human beings. We are created in His image, but beyond the resemblance, and that makes now, this is really the additional point here, there's an element of uniqueness, right? We are, each of us, totally unique, right? There's no human being like another. And that uniqueness is brought into substantial existence through our free response. Love needs that free response. Therefore, every genuine loving experience involves risk-taking. We take the risk to reveal ourselves to our partner, to be intimate with our partner. We do it at the risk of being hurt. And many times, unfortunately, it happens in marriages because we come with all kinds of unsolved conflicts. And as we approach each other on a more intimate level, we find out that the partner is not that ideal Prince Charming or Princess Beautiful as we imagined. And then we feel hurt, and we need to work through that. But it doesn't mean it's unstable because of the risk-taking. It becomes very stable because once we can experience that love in its fulfillment, that's the most powerful emotion which we share, and nothing can interfere in that most powerful emotion in terms of love being consummated in marriage, also in our marital sexual love, and then faithfulness and stability is the foundation for that, and that is what we are, what the original goal is for our marriage.
Well, that's a fascinating explanation you just offered our viewers, and I'm sure a point of real reflection for people about, why is it that marriage has this kind of spiritual component that really allows us to resemble God. I mean, I'm sure that's a new concept for some people, and I really appreciate your explanation because I find it very fascinating. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sexual fulfillment. You've been talking a little bit about sexuality. What are some of the most common issues which couples struggle about related to sex, and what have you discovered to be the keys to mutually satisfying and nurturing married sex? Elizabeth, would you like to start?
Yes, I think there's many things around it, and it starts with morning, greeting each other, have time for a hug for each other, having a nice meal together,
nice
bring
breakfast,
some joy into everyday life, and have time to communicate. Communication is so important, and sometimes I see life is so busy, people have no time to talk with each other, and that's killing the marriage. So find time to talk with each other. Sex is at the end, after you talk, after you hug, after you feel some joy with each other, then you feel, you can have sex. But if all those things are not there, it's very empty. So how to have a life which you have time to bring joy, to bring some elements, some things you do together, and then things will be fulfilled. Yes.
Okay. Dietrich, what would you like to add to what your wife just said?
Women would take the sexual relationship at the end of a process of creating intimacy. It's like the highlight.
Yes.
And in that sense, it seems to be the more harmonious and the logical approach.
Yes.
On the other hand, the masculine temper in our sexual drive is to seek intimacy through the sexual relationship, or being sexually stimulated, and that from there we think we are closer to our spouse.
Yes.
So
a whole different perspective
right.
on whether you're a man or a woman,
right.
on where the intimacy lies and how to create that intimacy.
Right. And some researchers would use certain metaphors again to illustrate that. It would say women are more like crock pots, and men are like microwaves, right? so that is kind of the image behind
so
it.
So crock pots cook very slowly.
Yes.
Slowly, yeah.
And a microwave obviously is very fast.
That's the fast one, yeah.
Okay.
So that's one point. But the other point is again to kind of reflect on our own sexual drive as man or woman, husband and wife, right? And how to put that into harmony or into the right relationship. And the one comment I want to make on that is that ultimately, if I realize that my sexuality expresses an ultimate partnership, that I'm created for my partner, then I'm not really the one who owns that sexuality. So my partner owns my sexuality, or my sexual organ, if you want. So I'm not free at will to do what I want. But I say this is a precious gift, like I mentioned before, which I want to give to my spouse. So that whole notion of ownership of our own sexuality, and actually the mutual ownership that the wife would own the sexuality of the husband and the husband that of the wife, that is maybe a new concept, but it brings across that ultimate goal of mutual self-giving.
Yes.
That the intimacy can only be accomplished in a fulfilled marital relationship, including marital sexual love, if that the constant focus is there. I want to live in mutual submission to my partner. So in that sense, it is very precious to see the power of sexuality in terms of stabilizing and deepening and fulfilling the marital relationship, and that is what is missing today. And therefore the problems resulting from abusive sexuality, like we had pornography or homosexuality, whatever, lesbianism, we have different ways of trying out our sexuality, but somewhere it's not fulfilling. We keep on looking and we keep on trying. And so we need to find back again to that original design, if you want, that God intended something with our sexuality. And if we live up to that original design, then the fulfillment will be at hand. And we will have a much more stable relationship. And that's the key, actually, to transform the present divorce culture into a marriage culture. That's really what the call is at this time.
Okay, excellent. Tell us more about the importance of understanding and expressing one's feelings as a means of rekindling love and increasing the harmony between husband and wife. Elizabeth?
Yes, I guess it's very important to express your feeling freely, but also to have someone listen very deeply to you. So the art of listening is so important in a couple. Like if I feel listened to, I feel so much comfort and so much happy. And nowadays, many people have struggled to listen. So the art of listening is so important to develop and really listen to your spouse, looking in the eyes and say, I understand you.
So really take the time and not just hear the words, but capture the expression that's behind the words.
Absolutely, yes.
Right.
Okay, great. And Dr. Seidel?
Yeah, and all that is also mentioned in the simple exercise of the speaker listening technique, as it's called.
Okay, please tell us about that.
So some issue comes up, some difference of opinion, and for example, we drive along on the highway, and I know I have to drive 400 miles, and I push the gas, and I'm so focused on my goal. But my wife looks at, oh, this is a cute little village. Let's stop here and have some coffee. That would be so great. Right. So it goes totally against my grain, because I want to accomplish this goal, and she wants to have the happy life. She wants to talk to people. So if I understand that this is how my wife is, I could adjust, and we could exchange and say, how important is it that we stop now? And she would say, it's an 8 on the scale from 1 to 10. And then I can say, for me, it's maybe a 6 that we arrive on time. So, okay, let's go and have a coffee and meet people and enjoy our ride. Okay. So that's just a little example here. But the point is that we would share our feelings, how much it means to us, a certain decision. And then we know where we stand emotionally, and we can adjust. And it's easier to get along with the wish of the partner instead of insisting on our own.
Or simply ignoring.
Ignoring it, yeah. So that's the speaker listening technique, that we even go to the point to, one has the floor, speaks about a minute or two about his or her issue. Then we give an empathic response. That we say, you just said that it really means a lot to you to stop now and to meet some people.
To show empathy.
Show the empathy. And then we reverse it. Then the other partner would speak about his or her desires, and then the empathic response comes from the other spouse. So we decide ahead of time there's a certain rule in exchanging our differences of opinions, and we learn to really make the listening event the major event. That is really the more difficult one, to be a good listener. Yeah. It's always more easy to kind of speak about your feelings and to let it come out, but to hold back and say, I really want to know where my partner is. So that empathic listening is something very important, and that is really the key for a lasting, happy marriage.
And then I guess one step beyond listening is then to take into account the other person's perspective.
That's right.
And be willing to, in a sense, change your mind about what actions you may take together.
Right.
Live for the sake of the other.
And there's just one more point, because you mentioned to rekindle our love.
Yes.
Many times in marriage we do have our flat periods. Nothing much is happening. We get into a rut. We take things for granted from the partner. We are not really grateful anymore. We don't praise our partner. And so we need to rekindle our love and our respect for each other continually. And one way to do this is that we make a list of desired behaviors from our spouse. I say, I wish my spouse would do this or that for me, cook me a good meal, or be punctual, or take care of some errands, or help with the housework, or whatever the list is. Make a list of desired behaviors from the husband, from the wife. Then we write it on little papers, put it in a jar, and randomly we pick one or the other desired behavior and do it without scorekeeping, right? Just as a free gift to rekindle the romantic experience.
Proactive.
Even without the other person knowing.
Yeah, that's right. Without the other person knowing, yeah, we would.
Also, positive thinking is important. Like sometimes you don't feel you want to cook dinner, or you want to say something nice, but force yourself. If you force yourself, then the spirit will come later. So through words are very powerful, and encouragement, good words bring also the good spirit.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point, that especially as husband and wife exchange more. If I'm mad at my spouse about something, but I visualize she's God's daughter, she has many precious abilities and talents, and she's such a good partner. If I allow these thoughts to come in, especially in a moment of challenge and feeling upset or angry about something, then we can push it away. We can create a very positive atmosphere.
Self-discipline of thought.
Discipline of thought, right? Yeah.
That's important.
So and then the real feeling would follow that, right? Because you could say, it sounds like artificial, if you're mad, so you're mad. But then the other side of the of the coin is, I can control that anger or madness. I can really bring a new perspective to the situation.
Mind over matter.
Yes.
Mind over matter. Yeah, mind over derailed feelings, if you want. No? There is also the aspect of finding the love language of our spouse. Everyone has a different love language. The love language of my wife is gifts. Give her some gifts, right? And say nice words, as words of endearment, right? So she would respond to that. And so maybe my love language would also be to be acknowledged for what I did, not to be taken for granted, but to find words of encouragement and all that. So everybody has certain ways of feeling loved. And the interesting thing is, for the man, he may think, I work 8 hours a day, I bring the money to survive. Isn't it enough proof of my love for my wife? But not so, because wives, women in general, it only counts 1 point. You bring a bouquet of roses, you earn 1 point. You bring a diamond for $10,000, it earns 1 point.
More than that.
And yeah, something like that. So in other words, there's a different record keeping in terms of a feminine response and how the men think about it. They think, I invested so much and still my wife is not happy. What shall I do? Right?
Yeah.
So it's good to kind of have a continuous flow of little gifts or niceties or random acts of kindness, as they say, to provide that for the partners, especially for the wife. This is advice for the husband. So then she would count every one of these as 1 point, and it adds up, and there can be a very loving and fulfilling relationship.
Little things bring true love, and the way we live our life every day, our habits, our love, our little things, like make sure we hug each other, how you doing today, and have a nice day, make a phone call during the day, keep your house neat and clean, have a good atmosphere, have a nice bedroom, say good words, I know I have to work on this, encourage each other, and expand your love to the community. Once you did it as a couple, as a family, then you have the strength to really help others and to care for other people and love your community and love the world. So this would be the kingdom of God if we can really do that.
Wow, that's beautiful. Yes. Beautifully said. Well, on that note, I want to thank you both for being our guests today on The Defining Moment. It's really been a pleasure having you both here.
Yeah, thank you.
You've been watching The Defining Moment for Creating the Culture of Conscience. You can find us on the internet at www.definingmoment.tv. Thanks for watching and have a great day.